This is the 2020 Chevrolet Colorado ZR2 Bison. Very, very cool vehicle. Trails here in South Carolina. Very, very mild stuff. Didn't get to do much big wheel articulation or rock crawls, but the truck, it actually proves itself to be amazingly awesome on gravel. You know, the things that make it a little bit awkward on the road are definitely advantages on or off the road.
Oh, that's nice.
Just made it through gnarliest hole ever in the Bison, and it appears I brought not a 2x4 out, but a 6x6. The boron skid plates are really doing their job under the rear diff there. Amazing machine. What's up, guys? This is Tom Burkhardt from Car Rev Saley, coming out for a drive review in the 2020 Chevrolet Colorado ZR2 Bison diesel. Long name, cool truck. Very excited to share some insights with you guys about this vehicle. The ZR2 Bison is one of the most intense and capable factory off-roaders that's on the market, and it's a stunner. I've learned some really cool stuff over the last week living with the car day to day, the truck I should say, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. So obviously super cool on the outside. This the ZR2 Bison is the upgraded ZR2 that not only has the big 2-inch lift and the you know, the 3.5-inch, 4-inch increase in track, but also has all new bumpers from AEV, which is American Expedition Vehicles. New bumpers front and rear, borons, 5 different boron skid plates underneath, and like a winch ready front bumper, and then fender flares to keep the rocks and the pebbles off the bodywork when you're in the ruts. It looks super cool. This new grill that the Bison has, that's like gloss black and just like Chevrolet, what they call flow-through grill with the lettering there, is actually going to migrate onto all 2021 ZR2 models, was just announced today. So that'll be a cool addition to the regular ZR2s. But this Bison will still be the top of the range when it comes to just like a really, like, you know, like an Alaska prep, like a, you know, an apocalypse ready machine that is just like perfect from the factory. So Bison is about a $5,700 option above the ZR2, which itself is the most loaded Colorado available. Colorados come with 3 different engines. You can get the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, a 3.6 liter V6, and then this 2.8 liter diesel 4. So this diesel is I think polarizing is the word to use. It's kind of dark right here. Polarizing is the word to use because some people love it and some people absolutely hate it. I've heard really bad things from other car guys, you know, car guys, not truck guys, about the vehicle. So, you know, getting in it, I was really worried that I wouldn't have anything nice to say about it. But after some time together, and particularly since being able to take the Bison diesel on some off-road trails, I've really come to love it and respect it, appreciate the benefits. So the diesel costs about $3,700 more than the 3.6 liter gas engine, and it is a lot slower. 181 horsepower, plays about, I think, 306 in the gas engine, and then we are better in torque, 365 for the diesel versus 275 for the gas motor. But all that translates to about a 9.5 second sprint to 60 miles an hour for the diesel, and just a 6.5 for the gas motor. So when you get in the car and you're driving down the street for the first couple times, the first things you'll notice are, like, you know, it actually handles pretty well on the street, and that's thanks to some cool shocks that we'll talk about in a second. But you'll also notice that it's like it's unbelievably deliberate in the way it gains speed. It just is it's just diesel-like, you know. It doesn't have to shift, it doesn't use as many gears, which is good because it only has 6 versus the 8-speed automatic in the gas V6. and it just takes its time getting up to speed, and that can be a good thing. You know, there are advantages to this. That becomes really a crucial thing. Like all that low rev torque becomes really awesome above, like, you know, 75, 80 miles an hour, where this thing is just loping along, yet still has plenty to give, plenty of passing power available. Whereas the V6s in these trucks can kind of run out of puff at that point. So those are all the downsides. So, and you know, in the first couple of days, I was really like, man, what is with these diesel guys? Why is diesel such a huge selling point for truck guys, and why is it such a status symbol and a mark of really coolness? But I've gotten to I've come to appreciate a lot of the cool stuff with it. So here's some of the on paper advantages. So it has a 700 pound higher tow rating, so that's in like its most tow friendly configuration. Takes the tow rating of the Colorado to 7,700 pounds versus 7,000 for the gas V6. And then you get about 4 miles per gallon better on the highway. 4 miles per gallon actually in all ratings. So this one with the ZR2 package and the diesel has the worst fuel economy, you know, of any of the diesels available, because obviously it's got the big lift, big tires, all that, extra weight from the skid plates. So this one is 18 in the city, 22 on the highway, or its official EPA ratings. That being said, I've been beating it. I've been doing better than that. I've been getting like 25 miles to the gallon, which is pretty awesome. And this is pretty new. It only has 1,500 miles for this 2020 tester. So real world economy is really good, particularly at real world highway speeds, where you know, the EPA test is like, I don't know if it's 55, or it might even be like 50 is what they've got the official. Actually, I think it might be 65. But anyway, so just real world wise, it's a lot more fuel efficient. All right, so now we're gonna go on a little off-road stuff. I'm gonna turn the traction control off. I'm still in two-wheel drive. So some major ZR2 advantages in general are going to be something let's talk about first, and then we'll keep talking about diesel advantages. So I really love the 4x4 system in here. It's got two-wheel drive as well as just like full auto, and then 4 high and 4 low. So it's just really easy to use, right? It feels like it engages right away. You don't need to have like a bunch of rotations on the tire before it will engage. So that stuff is really cool. All right, let's see if there's any. So, and then this, the ZR2 brings out locking differentials front and rear. So that's just fantastic to have for off-road ability. And those work flawlessly. They work so fast and so easily that it's really nice to have. Oh man, that looks fun, but I don't want to get too muddy right now. Just super capable off-road. The lifted ride height and narrower body versus like Raptor or any kind of full-size truck is a big asset off-road, because and it also comes with a tighter steering radius that is also a huge asset for off-road trails like we got here in the Southeast, where it can be a pretty narrow track. So for this little adventure, we've got it locked in two-wheel drive, and we've just got the traction control off because we're not doing anything demanding at all. Because this car's got to go to a bunch of other journalists after this, and they don't need to see a bunch of war wounds. But you know, I did get to spend some time off-roading all day on Saturday, like a couple days ago, with the Bison, and it really is phenomenal. I mean, this thing can get through any kind of holes, any kind of like enormous, you know, mud tracked paths that, like, you know, that even a regular pickup would just maybe would have a very difficult time with knobby tires, this grip, and you just plug your phone in and boom, there it is. So that's really cool. I mean, so it's like the Colorado is still it's a good vehicle. It's very trusty. There we go. We're off the sand. We're more onto like a little bit of gravel track. It's very trusty, and having this diesel is a really unique offering in the marketplace, particularly since the new Ford Ranger is available, and then the Tacoma, of course, is still hoovering up most of the sales in the midsize truck segment. But this is a big unique advantage for Chevy, and having the AEV conversion. Like, AEV is a pretty cool company. They do great stuff, and for this Colorado, they've not only done like those really awesome skid plates and bumpers, but they've got like custom floor liners, like a little embroidered seat here. It's subtle, it's little stuff, but it is enough to make you that you feel like they worked hard on the truck. You've also got like bash bars underneath the doors there, so that if you were to go over rocks, you're not going to bend the bodywork or the frame, which is nice. Just really like practical stuff as well. Giant tow hooks in back, and then huge tow hooks in front too. The front ones are concealed, but they are in back too. Oh, and about the LEDs, so the 2020 facelift appears to not, also keeps the same lights. It also doesn't bring new LEDs. So all of this stuff really just reinforces the fact that, like a sense you might get with the Colorado these days, and especially the ZR2 Bison, is that it's kind of like a run-out special. I mean, it feels like that in some ways, because this truck needs major updates in order to really stay top of the class when it comes to like modernity. Being modern, offering modern features, even features that would match like a Silverado. All right, so but it's very, very charming. I mean, off-road, the diesel is just like a sweetheart. Is really, really nice. And then one of the biggest, coolest things about the ZR2 that the Bison continues are the Multimatic DSSV shocks. So these DSSV shocks are really intense. They're one of the first off-road production applications of this technology, and it's fascinating. So instead of having basically like little bushings inside the shock that deform and allow oil to pass through when there's an impact, this has like precision laser cut valves that do that job. And the big advantage is that it's a lot more predictable, and performance doesn't degrade as you've been driving hard for a long time. So if you've been driving for hours and hours like they would on a racetrack, and like half of Le Mans entries are still using DSSV, came out like 10 years ago or something, but then it's still being used because it's so consistent and it's so expertly programmable via computer simulation. It doesn't take the hours or hundreds of hours of custom suspension tuning that a typical off-road shock would, because you can really just dial in the characteristics in the computer, and it's going to laser cut and essentially like create this perfect shock for you that is going to even when it gets hot, even when it gets cold, which is like, it's obviously going to get hot when you're in Baja, or if you've been running all day in a hot climate, or running all day in a cold climate. The front shocks are still right by the engine. The oil gets hot in there. And the same way, if you could picture the way hot oil moves in a cooking pan versus cold oil, it's just the same principle. So that hot oil can really it just degrades the performance of most off-road shocks once they get really warm and are taking hits, for hours at a time. Whereas this is going to maintain its performance and still do what it's supposed to do without any degradation. So that stuff is really cool. And then the way they look too, like they've got triple chambers. So instead of just like a single tube, it's actually the central. It's a tube, and then with like two additional chambers up top. The one on the far right is filled with nitrogen for like extreme bump impact rebound, and then the middle one is actually where the bypass valves are located. That handles basically the oil movement as the suspension travels. It all really works. It works really well. I mean, the Bison feels exceptionally well controlled at all times. It handles really well on road. It has a pretty firm ride on road, but not like so firm that it's irritating. And then off-road, I mean, these are big bumps, and it's kind of just like, it really doesn't mind too much. So it's a great truck. It's definitely special interest. I personally go for the gas motor all day because I can't deal with, or I just would never pick an engine that has 3 seconds more sprint time. Because I love acceleration, but I've definitely come to appreciate the engine, and at high speed you know, when you're like cruising on the highway in particular, or cruising, you know, off-road, it just is so chill and so relaxed that the diesel really does come into its own in those situations. All right, thanks for watching. This is Tom Burkhardt from Car of Zaley with the 2020 Chevrolet ZR2 Colorado Bison Diesel by AEV. See you next time. Bye-bye. Particularly with all this diesel's low-end torque, it just chomps through any of that stuff. It absolutely loves it. It gobbles it up. Loves it. Loves it. Bison loves it. It's really charming vehicle in that way. Okay, so this gets a little smoother, I think, coming up. So, okay, so we've got, so let's continue with the advantages of the diesel. Besides it being really cool, and a lot of guys just want to own a diesel, and of course it's being the first and only mid-size truck that has a diesel available. So those things are all like pretty enticing for hardcore truck dudes. So, but you know, continuing advantages are going to be the fuel economy, like we said. Towing is better, is up by a couple hundred pounds. Range is also up by more than 100 miles per tank. So you've got, you know, the range goes from like maybe like in the real world, practically speaking, from the 21-gallon tank that the gas V6 and the diesel 4 share, goes from about 450 in the gas V6 to around 525, 550 in the diesel, which is fantastic. And if you're driving it really conservatively on the highway, in some of the other diesel configurations that are lower to the ground, you can have more than, you can get, you know, basically like high 20s, low 30 miles per gallon on the highway, and an over 600 mile range, which is fantastic for any truck. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. So this truck has obviously got different capabilities and priorities, which are, you know, its off-road skills, which it does very, very well. I'm driving here in the sandy center because I think it's smoother. So okay, so those are some other advantages. And as we sort of touched on, but the off-road advantage of a diesel is that it has torque for days right away, and that means that you can get out of a sticky situation a lot more cleanly than you could in a gas engine, which doesn't make, you know, the gas V6 in the Colorado doesn't make its peak torque until 4,000 RPM and its peak power until about 6,000 RPM. So in order to hit those power peaks, you would have to have the wheels like spinning like mad, which is just going to dig you a lot deeper in the hole. Whereas, you know, we've got our peak torque coming in at just above 2,000 RPM. So it's obviously very, very advantageous in deep ruts and stuff like that, where either, you know, you would just be sort of like stuck, like literally stuck with the wheels not able to move because there isn't enough torque to twist them, or you would just be having spun away all of the potential grip trying to get some power down, whereas this has got the power there right away. So that's not to be sneezed at. I mean, it's really not. It's and off-road, this thing really comes into its own. That's my big takeaway. I should have started the video with this, but my big takeaway from spending a week with the Colorado is that the things that make it really awkward on road, and it is pretty awkward the first time you drive it, just like the brakes are really long travel. You really got to stand on them. The throttle is really like pretty dull. In addition to being like, you know, a slower motor, the throttle is also just really, really relaxed. It's another long travel tune for that throttle. So you've really got to boot it to get it moving. And then, you know, and those things in particular are just like pretty shocking, especially versus the Colorados with the V6 and without the ZR2 pack. But those become, you know, as awkward as they seem, or they might seem, depending on what car you're coming out of or what truck you're coming out of. Off-road, they're just big advantages. You know, you don't want grabby brakes, and you don't want a really jumpy throttle off-road, because, you know, jabby brakes, it's going to engage the ABS. It's going to potentially, like, you know, be digging in when you hit the brakes on a trail or something. And no, you don't want that. And you also don't want too much wheel spin from a real jackrabbit throttle. So having a nice balance or having just like that well-judged long travel setup for the Colorado ZR2 Bison just makes this feel perfect. It feels like really perfectly tuned to you know, suited fitness for purpose. It's totally ready for its mission, and it feels like it's really, really good at achieving that. So why didn't they just do all this with electronics? Let's like, sort of pivot. So, you know, it's great to have like a slow throttle and unusually dull brakes, but why couldn't they just do that with electronic drive settings like they do in the Raptor? I mean, I guess they could have, but that takes you to another Colorado unique point that's either a selling point or a demerit, depending on your perspective, is that Colorado, even though it's a new vehicle and it has a lot of newness in like its rigidity and its refinement, seating position comfort and stuff like that versus Tacoma, because it has this brand new design that was, you know, from a couple years ago, it is kind of frozen in 2015-ish for a lot of its tech features. So that's curious. Especially when you get to the big prices of like the Bison diesel flagship like we're in now, which has an SS price of about $53,000. So what do I mean? Well, I don't think that Colorado has no drive modes whatsoever, and it definitely doesn't have different drive modes for all-wheel drive beyond like the, you know, the 4x4 settings and the locking diffs. And then you can put it in low for the transmission, I guess. You can only shift the transmission via the paddles right here when you have it in low, which kind of bites. There's also no paddle shifters. You might hear the key whapping around. This truck takes a key. There's no proximity door locks, like no button on the door to get in. You really got to have the fob and the key with you to get in and drive the vehicle. It's weird to have a key whapping around. I mean, my personal car is like a Mazda CX-9 from like a decade ago that I try to drive as rarely as possible. That has keyless start, you know, keyless. Yeah, push button start. So like, it's pretty shocking that this 2020 model still has that. Other things that are really sort of kind of retro and feel are going to be the lighting outside. So the lighting is all incandescents and halogens. There's no LED lights on this truck at all. There's no LED DRLs, no LED brake lights, and certainly no LED headlights or fog lights. Which I guess, like, you know, it's a lot cheaper to do it this way, and I guess you could get better bulb replacements more easily in, you know, way out in the bush. Let's say you live in Alaska, like, you know, 600 miles to the nearest civilization or something. You could get bulbs and replace them a little easier in here. But, you know, from my perspective, I feel like the LEDs last so long that they might be better at just like lasting for more of the lifetime of the truck, and you wouldn't have to replace them as much. But, you know, it's neither here nor there. It's a lot of truck guys, and it's been pointed out to me, like really traditional features because there's less to break. You know, I did a review of the Frontier years ago, and I was like, you know, making fun of its steering wheel and stuff. And guys just really, you know, they liked it because it's traditional and it's proven. You know, it's really proven stuff. And that's the flip side of the coin. Like, it definitely doesn't have the latest style, like lighting style and technology, or some of the latest comfort stuff. But it gets it done. It gets it done. And then even though we don't have navigation on this, we have a big touchscreen display, but there's no factory navigation. But there's Android Auto and CarPlay, so you've got Google Maps. You know, that's like one.